Okay, testing. Just making sure. Just making sure everything is set up. Okay, everything is working all right. All the microphones connected. Perfect, and I got the thumbs up. Hello everyone, and welcome back to, of course, Tales from a Wanderer. My name is Oliver Sanchez, professional wilderness guide and all-round outdoors enthusiast. Today, like I said last week, we'll be kind of going away from the far up north and coming down to our local region here. We're talking about skiing and having some fun adventures for that. So to try and set up the first set of stories, me and my friend, my roommate, decided that kind of this season, like last season, we didn't really ski, COVID and lockdown and just all that terribleness and lots of quarantines. And so this season were kind of like, hey, we should do a full season of skiing, even though we're athletes and we're here on campus and we're trying to go to school and all that stuff. We should still try and do a full season. So of course, a lot of like planning went into the season. So both me and him are on the rowing team. So that means that there's not a ton of time. We've got Saturday practice, and that's really our only time to be skiing, which is on the weekends. So it was hard logistically to find time just to go out and ski and have some fun, basically. But both of us really, really wanted to do this, and we tried. We tried pretty hard over the season to get as many trips in as possible. I think we did 8 or 9 in the end, which is a pretty good season for us, I think. That's not too bad. That's quite a few trips we were managed to fit in all in the span of like, I don't know, 6 weeks maybe. Which was super, super fun. But this first kind of story comes from our first. So this was our first kind of foray, I guess, into trying to be able to ski the season. So it was probably November, late November. We still had practice, but it had been taken back a little bit, and we had no Saturday practice this weekend. So both of us, basically last minute on like a Friday night, were like, "Hey, we should go skiing Saturday into Sunday, basically. Ski both those days." So uh, you know, it was kind of like last minute, and we hadn't booked like basically anywhere to stay or sleep, basically. But the weather looked good. Weather radar looked good. Looked like it was going to snow, so we'd get some powder, and it looked just like sweet. It looks like we were going to get an awesome snowstorm, which would lead to some awesome skiing. So, both of us kind of decided last minute that, okay, we should go up. So basically Saturday night, we were like, okay, we're gonna drive up. It was like 6 o'clock, maybe. The sun's down. It's winter already. Sun's down, and so we were like, okay, we're gonna drive up right now, basically. So we're driving up. We're driving up, right? Neither one. We're just like, okay, we're excited for the season. Like we're excited for the basically the snow and the snowstorm, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be perfect. So we drove up, of course, and the ski area is closed at that point, right? Because, well, it was like 8 o'clock by the time we got up there. We were in Vermont. We went to, oh man, what was the name? It'll come to me. But we went up there. And my roommate had worked there before, and so he kind of knew the area, and I was just, this was like my first like really big mountain that I had been to, which was pretty sweet. So, but we got up there, and it's dark and no one's out, and so we're both like, okay, there's like auxiliary parking, like of course all big ski resorts. If you ever ski, the East Coast, all big ski resorts, like there's like auxiliary parking kind of off to the side a little bit. And that's where like the buses stay and like the tour groups and whatever, you know. Whatever they kind of want to park back there, they park back there basically. But we're both like, okay, if we park in like the very back parking lot, right? No one will see us, no one will notice. We'll sleep for however many hours we get. Boom, we'll get back up. We'll go and like ski for the whole day, right? Because well, that would be the best, right? Like skiing for a whole day and then hopefully driving home. And but it's not as easy as you might think to try and sleep in a car uh in in I don't know, probably 10 degrees, right? It's not as easy as you might think. So it was very cold. Colder than both of us expected. So I had on like basically long thermal bottoms, like a long top, and then a long and then my winter jacket, and then a fitted sheet that we had brought. So it was just the most ridiculous thing. And we put the driver and passenger seats basically all the way down, right? Heated the car, turned on the seat warmers like for like an hour beforehand, and then like tried to go to sleep. I must have woken up, I don't know how many times, 6 or 7 times in the middle of the night, just freezing. I mean, it was really cold. I had 2 pairs of socks on, I put my gloves on, right? Like, it and one of the main issues was that the auxiliary parking lot was just, like, an open field, basically, right? Like, it was just an open field, and so that kinda meant, like, the wind was just, like, cutting through us, basically. I mean, the wind just went right through the car and, like, sucked all the heat out of us instantly. So at like 12, maybe 2 o'clock, I'm sitting in the passenger seat shivering, and my roommate's in the driver's seat, and he's like, "I'm gonna turn on the car." I'm like, "Yeah, just do it, just do it." I probably slept for all of 30 minutes for the whole night, but I'm just like, "Just do it. Just turn on the car, like, let's get a little bit warm, and then we'll go back to sleep." So he turns on the car, and we heat it for an hour, and it's like 4 in the morning now, and then we go back to sleep, and we get back up, and so the mountain opened at 7, just about. And so we were pretty close to first chair, not entirely close, but after sleeping a night in despair, basically, not necessarily like what you really want to do, but I mean, it was all worth it. So in the morning we get our gear on and get our tickets, and there's kind of a polar opposite between us because I'm a snowboarder and my roommate's a skier, so there's kind of this fun interesting dynamic that goes on where, like I I just take a minute, get off the chairlift, gotta strap in the boots, gotta make sure, and he just gets off and he just goes basically. He just goes. So it's very funny between us. I'm like, give me a second. He's like, why do I always have to wait for you? And it's a laugh, and it was really fun. Well, this was personally my like first big mountain. Like I had skied a couple local resorts, not really resorts, local mountains near my house, and I worked at one over the winter, and so I'm an experienced snowboarder, I guess you would call it, but not necessarily on kind of mountains that big yet. But I've always wanted to go, and I've always wanted to basically go see what all the hype's about, right? And kind of one of my main goals for the season and for myself was to ski a powder day. We didn't really ski a powder day this time, but it was, I mean, it was huge. I've never been to a mountain that big, basically, but I mean, it was pretty big, very large, and the trails are rated kind of green to black, basically. So, we kind of warmed up on a blue, which is kind of an intermediate, and we were like, "Oh, like that was easy." And my roommate was like, "Yeah, yeah, that was really easy. Let's go on like one of my favorite trails." And I was like, "Ah, sweet. I got it. I got one run in my legs. I'm warm now." Right? Like I'm ready to go. And we basically we get to the top again, and we go over to kind of the left side, and it's a little bit windier over there, and so the wind's coming up, and like it's getting a little bit like sketchy. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like it was straight ice, which is like classic East Coast skiing, where it's like just straight ice, just a sheet of ice all the way down, and it's just terrible. But this was more, it was kind of in between ice and, like, fresh snow, I'd say, so there was a little bit of, like, give to it basically, but, I'm going down this trail and it starts off pretty mellow, and I'm like, "Ah, this is a black, like, this is easy, no problem, like, we could go up a level, like, double black, like, let's do that, why are we doing this?" And then all of a sudden, my roommate just, like, stops. It just looks like a cliff edge. I mean, I'd never seen a trail as steep as this one. But, I mean, it was just a straight cliff edge. It was, like, 45 degrees probably straight down. He stopped and he was like, "Oh, this is the greatest trail," and I have this really funny photo of us or him. He's just standing there, and it just looks like the world just drops out beneath him. I mean, it was a really beautiful view. I mean, you could see for miles, and it was this nice valley, and it was very, very beautiful, but at the same time, I was like, "Oh boy." Like, I somehow managed to get myself into this, and the key with snowboarding is that you always have to stay, or with skiing, you always have to kinda stay on an edge, right? So you want, like, nice snow so you can stay on an edge and you can stop and you can maneuver basically. I mean, but the face, it basically went down and then kinda mellowed out and then went down again. It was kinda 2 humps to this slope, and so he went down, he just zips off, I mean, basically disappears. And, I'm like, the heart's going, I'm like, okay, like, I'm just gonna take this a little slower." So, kinda drop in, and it's just ice, like, you can't stop at all, you can't stop yourself on your edges, you can't do anything basically. You're just sitting there like, "Okay, oh crap." Like, I gotta basically just go for it, just gun it down the hill because I have no way to stop myself, and there's no way I could possibly do anything right now. So I kind of just went for it, basically, and hit the kind of the mellow out spot. My knees just like like my whole body just like compressed into myself. And I went down the other one, and the same thing happened, like compressed into myself, and my back leg hurts from trying to turn, and my knees are like, oh, why? And then, I finally get to the bottom, and my roommate's just like, "God, that was sweet. That was the coolest thing ever. Oh, that was a great trail. Don't you love it?" And I'm like panting by the side. I'm like dripping in sweat because we were wearing, you're wearing a couple layers. It was probably 20, 25 out. You're wearing a couple layers, and I was just dripping in sweat, like just drenched. And I was like, "Yeah, that was really great." Like panting, and it was very funny. Just purely because like I wasn't ready for that basically. I was just thinking, "Oh, like I've got some experience," and basically just got knocked down a little bit. But we went up again, and it was this strange mix on kind of there on the mountain. The left, kind of the more of the northern faces, or sorry, the southern faces were really protected. So that was where kind of the green, some of the blues were, and then there was like one black diamond over there by the north side. But the south facing, no, sorry, the south side, the north side. I mean, just this crazy wind was coming in. So you kind of we did a couple more runs on that trail. I felt by the fourth run on it, I felt great. I was really confident, and I was like, no problem, right? I got it. But by the like you'd be drenched, you'd be really sweaty and like hot when you got down, finished with the trail because you're working, big muscles are working, right, in your legs, and then you start going up the chairlift, and I just zip everything up, right, because you're just you're the wind's coming in, and it's just being like heat is just coming out of you like there's no tomorrow, basically. But I mean, the mountain was great. We had a ton of fun, uh, but we were incredibly tired. I just remember going up the chairlift and just like rubbing my eyes a little bit, and just turning to my roommate and just being like, "How many runs have we done?" And he was like 15, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm definitely feeling it." Because you're when you're skiing, and when you're doing kind of snowboarding as well, you're just quads and thighs are just like on fire basically. So during a good day in kind of the later half of the season, which is a story I'll tell as well, but when we had kind of powder days and stuff, like you just wouldn't stop basically. So this we stopped, we took a break, kind of 10 runs in and ate and did all that stuff. But I mean, your legs were still just like on fire, right? Because you're moving the board and you're trying to weave around things and so your legs are on fire. And what makes it even worse, right, is my roommate, he loves moguls. Just loves them, right? And that's kind of these little bumps basically that can be made in the mountain uh for skiers and they just kind of they're just kind of dips and dimples, I guess would be the best way to describe them in the mountain. They're made of snow and they sometimes happen when you're basically making turns and then you kick up snow and then more people kick up snow and then eventually you kind of just create like a mound of snow in the center, which isn't the best. And then if you hit that, it's just like solid ice at that point. But he really loves them, really enjoys them. And so almost every other run we were going down them. And so my legs are just like killing me. I'm trying to weave in and out of these moguls and I'm like going over them, making jumps. I'm falling, right? Like I'm doing my best to keep up and he would get to the bottom and be like, "Oh, I love that trail. That's great. Should we do it again?" And I'm like panting. I'm like undoing my vents and trying to get like cool air into me. And I'm like, I mean, sure, why not? Because it was all just kind of a big adventure for the both of us. Just being able to take this first trip and go up and be able to see that yes, in fact, we can both go up there and there is enough time in the season and kind of with what both of us are doing that we are able to go up and still ski and still do all of that. So that was kind of the first story I have where our first foray, I guess you'd call it, into trying to be able to ski a season and to try and be able to work it around our schedule since we were both very, very busy people. But the second story was when we were kind of more into it. So this happened in January. Um, and we were more into it. We're more experienced. We had done a couple overnight trips already where we had gone somewhere overnight, stayed there, and then basically come back to school or ski the next day and then come back to school. So this was another one of those kind of situations. So we were in kind of 8-hour weeks to 10-hour weeks at that point for rowing. So again, not a ton of time, and we had Saturday practice. So this week we had Saturday practice. It was Catamount. Catamount was this mountain. And so we had Saturday practice. We had slept until about 5 on Sunday. And then at about 5, we kind of got up and the weather report was looking good. We were supposed to have nice snow up there. And so Catamount was by my house. So it's about an hour and a half from school. So it was going to be nice snow, a short drive, and like even though it was early, like we could still get back and still be in time for practice and kind of all of that. So we got up at 5. Brutal wake up. I mean, after you've gotten up like 7 days in a row at 5, you're like, nah, do I really want to get up right now? But both of us kind of got up and it was just pouring rain at school. Pouring rain. Right. So we're trying to load the car and I'm soaked and my roommate's wet and we're both like, well, like let's hope that this turns into snow somewhere up farther farther north. Let's really really hope that this turns into snow. um so we kind of packed the car and went off and about 30 minutes maybe from school it kind of turned into that kind of wet, not necessarily snow, but like freezing rain almost kind of thing going on. Like it was bordering. And so, the snow plows were out and we were basically, I mean, the only car out there because it wasn't like there was snow, but it wasn't like the roads were necessarily like the greatest at the moment. So it was just kind of a slog to get up there. It was a haul. It was a haul, I would say. So we finally kind of make it up there, I guess you would say. Um, and I wouldn't necessarily say it was snowing, but we kinda hit the snow rain line and it turned to, like, this wet, heavy snow, basically. And we kind of I remember distinctly, it was raining, it was raining, it was raining, and then, like, we make the turn to go into Catamount, and, like, we see the Catamount sign, and it just like that, like, it snaps, and it just turns to snow almost instantly, but that kinda wet, rainy, heavy snow that you kinda get. So, both of us were skeptical of, conditions, right? We were like, "Oh, this was supposed to be a good snowstorm, it's supposed to be a big day. It's actually terrible out, like, what is this?" But we kind of just said, "You know what? We'll persevere, we'll keep going." So we got all our gear on, and by that time, I had this really nice new jacket, you know, nice Gore-Tex, and I had my nice Gore-Tex pants on because I knew, when it's snowing, you often want what's called a powder skirt, and so that's a little skirt that kind of clips in underneath your jacket, keeps powder from going up or snow from going up inside your jacket. And I was also had kind of nice, almost soft shell, but sort of hard shell pants on, which was also very nice. So I was warm and dry for the whole day. My roommate was not. He I mean, the so we backtracking a little bit, but that was kinda what we were wearing. Like, I was wearing some nice pants and some nice stuff. Like, I knew what conditions might be, and my roommate was less prepared for it, but, you know, that was unfortunate. So, we kind of, get up to the chairlift and get our tickets, and it's still snowing. It's still snowing, pretty hard. Uh, but it's kind of, like, sticking to everything. I mean, it's wet and your foot's dragging in it, and all I'm thinking is, "This might have been a mistake." Like, we just drove basically 2 hours to come up here and see basically crap snow conditions. But we continue on because we were up there, we were gonna ski no matter what, pretty much. So, we get on the chairlift, and that's kind of the worst part, being on the chairlift because, your whole kind of front you're sitting down, right? So your whole front is exposed, and then, you're sitting on a wet chair as well, so, you know, your butt's also wet. So it's not like the best situation you could be in, but we finally get to the top, and I strap in, and usually, you strap in, then you kinda twist and start heading downhill, but no, I mean, like, you were barely moving, so you kinda have to, like, wiggle a little bit. I had to, like, wiggle myself down just a little bit to try and, like, get down the hill, and then it finally were I don't know what really happened, but then it finally started moving, and I was like, "Ah, finally," and, I started moving, 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 and every time you tried to make a turn, just, like, this wall of, like, wet, watery snow kinda, like, moved with you as you made this turn, so you're, like, trying to catch an edge, and it was, like, slippery and wet, and so you'd move again, and it was just very it was wet, heavy snow conditions, so, we kinda went from icy conditions in the first half and then wet conditions in the second half, and I was thinking the whole time, like, "Man, this is terrible, but at least I'm dry, right? Like, at least I'm dry," and on, I think, the 5th chair up, I mean, it was the slowest chair system as well, it was so slow. I think it was the 5th chair up, my roommate just kinda turns to me and goes, "I'm soaked." I was like, "You are? Like, you wearing a jacket? You got, like, nice pants on?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm really wet." And I'm like, "Okay, alright." So, this might be cut short, but I it was very, very strange conditions because also we were going down one of these runs, and they weren't as steep as the first couple of trips, and so, like, it took a minute to build up some speed and some power, basically, but you'd be you'd be going and going and going, and then I tried to stop, basically, like, the simplest of things. I tried to stop, and the whole, like, mountainside kinda, like, shifted on me, if that makes any sense. The whole side of the mountain, like, shifted on me, and I kinda, like, caught myself a little bit and, like, almost fell but didn't, and started like a small, not a large avalanche, but a small avalanche. We just kind of moved a little bit and then stopped. And so what basically it was just a sheet of ice underneath all this wet, kind of heavy snow, and which meant basically you put enough pressure into it and the whole thing will just like slide on you. So along with trying to basically, you know, do all this stuff, right? Like trying to stop and trying to catch an edge and trying to go fast. I mean, there were some cool little jumps that you could do kind of off the side of the trail that me and my roommate did, but trying to do all that stuff, you're also like, am I gonna slide half the mountain face out? No, I won't. Maybe on the other side, I also won't. So it was very, very strange, but strange conditions, bad drive up there, and we were both. I mean, I think we only did like 11 runs until I was like, I'm too tired to keep going, and my roommate was like, yeah, I'm too wet to keep going. Like I'm just like every my clothes are just like soaked basically. So we were like, okay, let's just pack it up. Let's just go. So then we drove, of course, back, and then the next morning we had a 5:15 wake up again. So it was quite the adventure at the time to go, and that was our first time trying to go in season when we were working, when we were doing this thing, to go and try to basically ski. And so, there were some upsides, right? Like we got to go skiing, like conditions weren't the best, but we got to go skiing and we got to go kind of, excuse me, but we got to go kind of have another adventure. And what could be better than having an adventure, right? When you're kind of trapped here at school. So that was kind of the whole point of the whole project, or the whole skiing idea, was to be able to just have like a little adventure outside of school and outside of what we always do. So those are the two stories for today. Um, but kind of adding on to both of them, for both of these kind of stories, they were both documented. So I was following my roommate with a camera, and then he would sometimes come with a camera to film me, and so both of us were kind of being filmed, and it's way harder than you think to ski, to try and ski with a camera on. I mean, it's very strange for a snowboarder because a lot of my movement is like all hips, which is very it creates very strange motions when you're on the camera and when you're trying to film. But both of us were kind of like, you know what, we should film this because we can kind of show, during this, that hey, look, like we're both athletes, like we're both students, like we're both trying to do all these things, but we're also both trying to kind of have fun, have an adventure in college, and not have to be, dragged down by basically our schedule, which is at the moment, like, of course, it's like the same thing every day, right? And so I think that's a feeling that a lot of college kids have, right? Of like the same thing. So we were trying to break the monotony, and we wanted to kind of film this, and I said to my roommate, like, hey, look, I have an idea for it. Like, I have a camera, like, let's just film this. Why not, right? So we did end up filming it. Filmed at six mountains, six out of the nine probably mountains, because of course that rainy day messed with the camera a lot. So the camera was wet when we were trying to film, and then of course we didn't film the first one because that was a test run, and you don't really want to film your test run because a lot of mistakes were made. Sleeping in the car, for instance, or me falling, another good instance. But it was very fun to create kind of this movie and this idea. So the movie is called The Escapists. So it's about me and my roommate, and it's kind of about our dream to go skiing and to have this little adventure. And so that is going to be up. So if you up pretty soon. So if you enjoyed, if you enjoyed the show, or you enjoyed these two stories, there's a lot more stories on there. times when we were trapped in a woods, or trying to just do this time that he I fell trying to do a jump, and he fell trying to do a jump. And so, if you're interested in these stories, or interested in doing that, then that will be up pretty soon. And once it is, I will once again tell you where you can watch it. Most likely it'll be on YouTube, and on my site as well. So those are, of course, the two stories for today. Uh, Next week we will still be on skiing, of course. And I think we will talk about a one of the most rarest things in skiing, a northeastern powder day up in Vermont, along with some funny fails and falls that we had along the way. So, as always, I've been Oliver Sanchez with Tales from a Wanderer.